along the side portion of the driver's seat, what is often an area that a weapon could be carried or concealed. One of the officers that was directly behind him appeared at that point, once he saw him reach or appear to reach, pulled on his shirt, trying to pull him backwards to no avail. And at that point, shots were fired. So that's what I see in the video. That's what I surmise from what little bit I've been able to gather from news outlets. So with that being said, I want to bring in my partner to kind of follow up on what his perception was. This a good police encounter or police action, or should the people be in an uproar over the incident in this climate? So with that being said, what you got, Law?
Well, not much different than what you have. One of the things that when I first saw the video earlier this morning was, at least one of the first thoughts was, what happened prior to the video coming on? And the only reason that was a question for me was the police were there, so something was happening or something, was going on that caused the police to be there. The next thing was they were dealing with this particular individual, and what I thought was odd was he walked from the passenger side of the vehicle all the way around to the driver's side of the vehicle. So for me, my first thought was, why did they allow that action? Which goes back to, we don't have enough information on the front end of that video to determine, what the police response was there all about to begin with. Because my thing is, if they have a lawful right to detain that dude, then he shouldn't have walked all the way around the other side of the car. Now, the fact that he did, and he opened the door and reached in, we don't know what he reached in for. Maybe the officer that was behind him that actually, pulled the trigger, maybe he saw what he was reaching for. I don't know. I'm not going to speculate on that. I know this much. Under that scenario, with those circumstances, my response probably wouldn't have been much different. If you're reaching in and I'm behind you and I can't determine what you're reaching for. But then it goes back again to what I say, why did they allow him to do that? I don't know. I don't know what the encounter was all about. We can't really hear, what was being said or done. Something you said when we were talking offline was, whatever was going on, when an officer pulls a gun out on you, that should probably end, whatever your issue was. And like we say all the time, your objective at that point is survive the encounter. So if you got a gun pulled out on you, stop, live for the next moment, And it's, at that point, it's not about winning the argument or winning the fight or whatever it is you're trying to win. You got a gun put on you. All right, just like, any normal, rational thinking person, somebody put a gun out on them, the response should be different than just, whatever it was they had going on. So I think we need more video on the front end to really determine, did they have a right to detain him? And maybe that's why they let him walk around, or they had a right to detain him and they just let him walk around. I don't know.
Yeah. It's a very short video. It doesn't give the whole story. So basically all we can do is comment on is the optics of it. And the optics of it from that short video was for me at least, is at the point that an officer pulls out his weapon, right or wrong, and commands you to stop you know, that's the point. You got to say, okay, I'll give you this one, but I need to live to fight another day. So, but like Law was saying, did they have a lawful reason to detain him? We don't know at this point. But I am big on a person's right, and I understand how hard it is for a person to just comply when they feel their rights are being taken away. But as we keep advocating, the objective is to survive the encounter. And we can't always just default to the officer was wrong on every shooting or use of force issue when it involves police or white police versus a black citizen. We can't always just default that the police were wrong. Sometimes we just got to understand people just won't do the right thing no matter what. And so, you know, you want to give people the benefit of the doubt because the law has to respect people's rights, and or if they're really going to ask people to respect the law. So,
and that's even with like the rioting, or I shouldn't say that, the protesting. Understand when you protest what you're protesting about. Right now, all you have is officer shot a dude in the back 7 times. Okay, what else was going on? So some of these shootings that, you know, we don't like it, you know, like to hear people being shot or whatever, but sometimes it's justified, or sometimes it was necessary for that moment. Like I said, you know, but he opened the door and he leaned in forward. So it's not like he was getting in the car. You don't get in the car head first. You get in the car, his feet first and butt first. So just on the video, that didn't look like he was getting in the car. So we got to stop being so quick to, like you say, judge everything as a racial issue, or judge everything as he shot him because he was black, or did he have to shoot him that many times? And be educated on the scenario. Now, you know, we say this all the time. You can be right, or you can be alive, or you can be right and alive later on. I'm gonna choose the alive side first, and then we'll fight in court. We're not gonna fight on the side of the road or wherever else it might be.
I like to look at things from a deeper level. You know, I like to go a little bit deeper than just surface, just on what we're looking at that time and moment. I like to try to figure out, is there some other underlying issue that goes much, much deeper? So what keeps coming to mind, and this is going to be maybe a generational thing, and I say that to say that, are the children today, you know, I mean, I'm in my 50s, so I was raised in totally different from today's generation. But the generation today, have they been raised and allowed to just disregard authority? You know, does this go even deeper as the way a lot of the children, young adults, teenagers, is this just the way that they're raised? That I understand that they are more in tune to saying, hey, I got rights, and they're more in tune to standing on their rights. But are they truly standing on their rights, or are they just being openly defiant, openly disrespectful, just have no regard for authority? You know, did our generation, because these are our children, a lot of times that are encountering the police, these are the children that my generation birthed and raised. So did we drop the ball and allowing our children to get away with too much versus raising them with some resemblance of discipline and respect for authority?
I think there may be some validity to that to some degree. I think nowadays it's more difficult to be in the law enforcement profession and commanding the same amount of respect that that profession used to command back in the day when we were kids, because of the things that have been taking place, where sometimes officers were not correct in their actions. So, as with anything, you know, one bad apple and then everybody gets painted with that same broad brush. So, you could be the most appropriate officer on your department, but when you show up, the people looking at you, you're carrying Mark Furman, you're carrying the dude that killed George Floyd. I mean, you're carrying all of these dudes on your back, even though you have no idea who they are. Like, you ain't never met them. You don't police like them or anything like that. But because you got on that uniform and that badge, that's how people look at you. So you automatically get the disrespect that will come along if they stood in front of those people that I called. Now, that don't make it right, and I don't think it's everybody, because there's a whole lot of people that still look up to law enforcement. But I think there's more of the segment of the population that doesn't see law enforcement in the same manner. So you may get a situation where, like the guy here in Gwinnett County, when he was obviously there for a lawful reason, but because he was on private property, you know, the lady screaming and hollering, telling him she not going to jail, or he not going to jail. So just the fact that he was there, she was turned up on 10. Now, why he was there? Did he have a legal right to be there? I'm assuming so. But and then based on the whole video that was released with his body cam, it looked like he was there just to investigate the second part of what was supposed to be or something. So he probably could have handled that himself differently. But the disrespect was on him when he walked up in the yard before he even opened his mouth. So, and I just, like I said, I just think that comes from, in this day and age now, law enforcement doesn't get the same respect it used to have.
And that's a challenge law enforcement across the country has been battling for decades, is that community engagement piece, you know, because we've always tried to interact with the public on a positive note so that they won't look at law enforcement or look at that uniform as the enemy. So that's been a challenge for decades, for a long time. So how do we overcome that obstacle? You know, because again, until the law enforcement community restores that trust, you know, that the community can trust in them, then the community will always look at them as the enemy and will automatically judge them and will automatically be less compliant and less civil. So, you know, law enforcement has been trying to bridge that gap for a while and apparently has not done a good job.
Some of it is understanding, and we talked about this probably a month or so ago, understanding the clientele. When you show up, understand that they are not going to view you in a favorable light. So do what you can to yourself bridge that gap. You're there to do a job, and the job has to get done, you know, regardless of how they feel about it, or whatever their actions are, the job is going to get done. But go there and put yourself in those people's place, have some empathy, and try to bridge the gap yourself, at least for that instance, or during that time frame. Because your encounter as a law enforcement officer, your encounter with somebody could turn the tide on how they feel about law enforcement in general. Just your encounter with, one person's encounter with you. So I think having that mindset also requires you to see people for who they are. You can't lump everybody into the same criminal category. Because I'm here at your house and you live in Section 8 housing, you're this kind of person. So I think the stereotypes and the biases, sometimes law enforcement walk in the door with a preconceived idea of who they're dealing with, which means depending on how they feel about those stereotypes and biases, they may not respond in a way like I'm saying, where you have empathy. They come in with the phrase you use, they come in heavy-handed, and when you start on 10, then there's nowhere to go. You can't go. You can't build. You can't escalate things. You walked in the door escalated because of where you are and who you're dealing with. So I don't know. I think it's give and take on both sides. As a police, I got to walk. When I show up, I got to understand. You may have an issue with me, not me personally, but me, who I represent and what I represent. And I gotta understand that. I gotta wear that burden. I throw you a quick example, and this is going back some time, but Jesus's disciples got labeled because of stuff Jesus did, and they were with him, even though they didn't do it. They got labeled with it. Some of them initially was like, "Yeah, I ain't really with him," because they didn't want to have to face what he faced. But that's kind of the same thing. We as law enforcement get labeled for things that other law enforcement officers do in cities and states that we've never visited. But we still get stuck with all y'all. Police officers steal money, and it's all y'all steal money. I mean, that's just the way it is, the nature of the beast.
Yep, you said something that was very important as far as one of the solutions is to recognize that there has to be that mutual effort to change that relationship between the community and law enforcement. The law enforcement can't do it all by themselves. The citizens also have to change the way they view law enforcement and have to show law enforcement some degree of understanding. I mean, if they're asking for law enforcement to be empathetic to their issues, they also have to be understanding to the role and the job of law enforcement. So, you hit it on the head. There has to be that mutual line of respect, going in. And we've gotten away from that on both sides of the coin. But your leader's going to have to take the lead in changing this dynamic in this culture. So I'm putting the emphasis back on the leadership within the law enforcement community and also the leadership within the community. Your faith-based organizations have to talk to their people. Your civic organization have to talk to their people. Your parents have to talk to their people. So everybody has to take ownership of this issue in order to at least open up the dialogue to getting it back on the right path.
And this, I mean, I'm still of the mindset that when you take on this career, some of this stuff going in, some of it you won't know until you experience it for yourself. But you can't lump everybody into the same mix, just like the citizenry can't lump all law enforcement into the same mix. Because every individual is not the same. Although you may run across, police, every officer is not the same, just because everybody's different. The way Sam would handle a call may be different from the way I would handle a call, but our resolution is the same. How we, the end result would be the same. So, like I said on that video, if they had a right to detain that dude, he shouldn't have been walking around the car. But I don't know if they had a right to detain him because I don't know what was happening on video happening prior to the video coming on. So, that part of it we don't know. Bottom line, you respect law enforcement or authority, period. And I do think what you said is true in that regard, that there has been some issues with just, people not respecting authority in general. And I think it plays out more so in law enforcement. You don't see it towards judges in the courtroom the way you see it towards police officers on the street. And I'd be curious to hear some people's thoughts on why they think that is. My thought is because acting up in the courtroom is immediate. you get sent to the cell immediately, and maybe it could be just the judge still has respect.
Yeah. So, tragic situation. Again, the video is very, very short. We do need more context to give a broader perspective, but a lot of time we draw an opinion, and it's that opinion just based on the optics. So again, our opinion is not in concrete, probably don't even mean a whole lot to the viewing audience, but this is just our opinion and our perspective, and just on the optics of that short video. All we're saying, I guess the biggest takeaway is from survive the encounter. That is the biggest takeaway, irregardless of what happened prior to the actual shooting. No matter what happens, the bottom line objective is to survive the encounter. And when an officer pulls out his weapon and commands you to stop, that's what you got to do. You got to, you got to give it up at that point, because the end ain't gonna be in your favor. So that's all we're advocating. We're not, trying to hold court on this issue. We're just commenting on a very short video. And I think from my 26 years experience, based on what I saw, my action wouldn't have been much different if that's what I saw. If that's what led up ultimately to those last 10, 15 seconds. So.
And here's a difference in just responses. I cannot remember where this other shooting was, but there's another guy that got shot in the back several times. I think he actually died. But he was holding a knife, and he was getting ready to walk inside of a convenience store, and he got shot several times. But there was no outrage over that. And that was caught on somebody else's video. But there was no outrage over that. There was no marching and protesting and all of that, because, and you can actually hear this in the video, the people were saying he had a knife. So I'm totally in understanding when people, fuss and argue over what they perceive to be unjustified shootings. In this particular one, unless you know exactly what was happening when he opened that door and leaned in, I don't think there's enough for anybody to really form an opinion on what should have happened or what shouldn't have happened, because you don't know. I think I wish I could remember what city it was in, but the guy that was walking in the convenience store that got shot, I guess they could rationalize he had a knife, so the community was okay with that shooting because he had a knife, because there was no uproar. And that, I don't know. I think that just happened last week.
What, this Wisconsin incident?
No, the other one that I'm thinking of that I can't remember the
Knife?
Yeah, the one that had the knife. I can't remember what city it was.
They're happening so frequently, it's hard to keep track of them these days.
Man, and that's the unfortunate aspect of it is it happening more frequently, or is it because it's being videoed more frequently?
Probably the video. Cameras are everywhere these days, and you can't escape what the camera captures.
Right. That's because I've had that thought myself, are these incidents taking place more frequently, or are we more aware of them now because they're being caught on camera more frequently than ever before?
Access to instant information. You can stream an incident live. You can upload it in a matter of seconds. You can't escape this technology.
No. And it, one of the things, and it apparently, well, I don't know, I guess you go either way. One of my concerns with so much technology is would it cause officers to hesitate? And now I've seen video of officers dealing with people that were white or a different race other than black, and they had a lot more patience with things that, as I'm looking at it, I'm thinking to myself, oh, he would have been shot. And so the technology hasn't caused people to hesitate when they're dealing with certain races, I'll say that. But they have a lot more patience and leniency when dealing with others. I'm sure you've seen the one with the he had an axe, naked white guy with an axe, swinging an axe at police, and they just kept trying to get him to put it down. I'm not asking you to put an axe down. Just not. You can hold on to it while you laying on your back, breathing your last few breaths. I'm not yelling and screaming at you to put an axe down. I'm not telling you to drop the knife. We're not doing that. I'm not doing that. But they were doing it. Yelling and screaming at the guy. There's several. I'm gonna have to look some of them up and I'll post them to where officers do show, the leniency or, all these de-escalation tactics that, we be talking about they need to use. They use them in certain scenarios. I'll say that.
Okay. Well, I don't have anything else on this topic. other than I just want to make it clear that my opinion on my actions, what I would have done, or in my agreement with what these officers done, is purely based on the presumption that when he reached in the manner that he reached, it didn't appear he was getting into the vehicle. he was reaching for something. So my opinion is purely based on the presumption that he is reaching for a weapon, and at the angle that that officer was in, he was in a better situation to see what he was reaching for. So if it comes out to say he was really just reaching for his cell phone where he could start videoing, all this changes. If it comes out that there was an actual weapon found, it stays the same. So that's just my last.
Well, and I'll push back on that a little bit, because if he was reaching for a cell phone, is that the time for you to be trying to grab your cell phone? That's not the scenario to be trying to grab a cell phone.
No.
I mean, you got to know when to hold them and know when to fold them. And that was not, like, you can't be doing stuff like that when the police already have their gun out on you. Like, you shouldn't be reaching for nothing. I ain't reaching for nothing. You want me to get something? No, you get it. You need it that bad, you get it. You already got your gun out on me. If you really need it, you get it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just, we got to use some wisdom. Now, it didn't look like, that looked like a heated situation. So, I don't know what the conversation was like, but it didn't look like it was conversational at all. Or, like the police couldn't really say nothing at that point. Something had to happen for them to have guns out. So, you don't know. Man, he might have said, all right, y'all keep it up. I'm about to get y'all.
Now,
we don't know. Nobody know. We don't know what that was all about.
Now, I will say, you got 3 officers there. You have this one individual. Where was the intermediate tactics? I didn't see where it required going straight to your firearm. There was no intermediate tactics that I saw. No taser, no pepper spray, no hands-on compliance or defensive tactics. There was nothing. I mean, if I would have bum rushed him and I would have grabbed him, I would have prohibited him from getting to the car physically, because I could see his hands and it didn't appear he had anything in his hand. So it would have been a physical engagement. Now, 3 officers, I believe we could have constrained him and prevented him from getting into the car. So I didn't see that effort. And that's my whole thing. And you alluded to that earlier. Are the officers now more reluctant to engaging individuals, or second guessing their actions, or not even thinking at all?
Yeah, I mean, because with all those tools on the tool belt, and this kind of goes back to what we already said, we don't know what happened before the video started rolling that caused them to go from 0 to 100. There was nothing in between, no taser, no nothing in between. So we don't know what caused them to escalate that quickly. But I always thought that when you have someone that's lethal, somebody should be non-lethal, particularly when there's 3 people there. Because if you got to take somebody into custody, the non-lethal person is the one that's usually going to do the handcuffing, because the lethal person got covered. I don't know. It's 2020. I've been out the game for 4 years, so maybe they changed some stuff around. But that was always my thing, is if it's multiple officers there, one of us gonna be hot and the other one can be cold, because you're gonna do the handcuffing if we need the handcuff. But I'm gonna still go back to with all that is going on. If the police got their gun out on you, don't do stuff to make them shoot you. If you already believe that's what they want to do anyway. You can't have it in your mind, all y'all want to do is shoot us, and then give them a reason to shoot you.
Right.
That don't match. So if you have it in your mind, all y'all want to do is shoot us. Don't give them a reason to shoot you, particularly if they got the gun out pointing at you. I mean, I know common sense ain't all that common, but I mean, come on now. You either want to survive the encounter or you don't.
You can't. A lot of times you can't have it both ways.
Right.
You can't have it both ways. So you gotta pick a struggle.
Go
A
ahead.
lot of people have been focusing on the fact that he had his kids in the car. Apparently he has 3 kids that was with him and they were in the car. So they witnessed all this, and so a lot of people are focusing on the fact that the officers used too much force in front of his kids. And so it's a tragic situation, so I don't want this to be taken out of context. But you also have to say, well, if you're expecting the officers to take into account that there are kids on the scene and trying to balance out officer safety, you have to also challenge the citizen, or in this individual, in this situation, the father. He has to know, hey, I got my kids here. So I have to rise above this situation more so, so that I don't escalate this situation because I have my kids. If I was here by myself and I wanted to, have a Mexican standoff and I wanted to fight and all that, I'm like, okay, bro, I respect that. But as a father or as a mother, parent, whomever, if you're going to take into account that your kids are on scene, you have to protect them as well. So I want that to be recognized when we say, but his kids were in the car. Well, he knew that as well. And he should have said, I'm finna bring this thing down to not only that I survived the encounter, that my children survived the encounter. So I just wanted to bring that out as a talking point, because a lot of people are focusing in on the officers who were way out of line because there were kids in the car. But they wasn't aiming at the kids. And if they were trying to protect themselves, again, I have to go with that. Unfortunately, kids were there. It's a tragic situation, but that father had to take that into account as well.
I agree with you 1,000%. Again, going back to what I just said, your kids are there. You understand your children are there. So how do you want this to play out in their eyes? And if that thinking never, rose to the level that made him go, all right, let me check myself, then nothing would have. But I can't, I can't see or sit here and hear people say, well, he had his kids in the car, they should have, or the police should have. No, he should have, because those are his children. So, and the first responsibility as a dad is protecting kids. So I'm gonna protect y'all from danger from them. I'm gonna protect y'all from danger from seeing stuff you ain't supposed to see. My first thought is, okay, my kids here, I can't go to jail. All that should have came first. Again, though, not knowing what was on the front end of the situation, because we don't have the luxury of the video. What we do know from what we can see is his actions did not seem to be consistent with trying to protect his children or trying to survive the encounter, because I think this was on Police Academy. Do not make any sudden moves that I may deem as hostile. Hostile. I think Tackleberry used to say stuff like that. But that's reality. You know, especially when the gun already pointed at you. Like, come on, man, that's just not wise at all. On top of, you know, if you have an issue, you got issues with the police, you don't trust the police, you think all the negative things you think, okay, you can't have all them thoughts and then do something like that. That's just, I mean, it's unfortunate. I don't believe none of those officers that were on that scene showed up to work that day with the mindset that we're going to shoot somebody in the back today. So, I mean, it sucks on their end too. But that's the nature of the beast when you don that uniform. Some days are going to suck, and then most days are great. That's just the day happened to be the day where, you know, it sucked for him and for them. And they might end up in a situation where they end up on the wrong end of this based on political pressure, because that has happened as well. I think the officer in Gwinnett that got fired was a political firing, because the department said the arrest was legal, the investigation was legit and all that, but then they fired him because he was unprofessional. So that was a head scratcher. So if he was legit in making the arrest and how he did it, you fired him because he was unprofessional. Is that because it was on video? Or do you fire all officers that cuss out citizens when they make an arrest, or have to use tasers and that kind of thing?
Well, Law, at least within the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, and I'm sure there's a similar policy in most law enforcement agency, is actions unbecoming. And the optics of it was, he looked like a damn fool. He was overzealous. He had no tactics. You know, his actions did not deem he was acting on professionalism. He was acting on training. It did not. So that particular catch-all policy is for these type of incidents when your eyes is telling you this does not look good. You know, you might be all right within policy, okay, but it does not look good. It is very unbecoming. It does not uphold the standards of professionalism and the look that we are trying to present. I was embarrassed. Seeing how that officer presented himself, I was truly embarrassed. Now, only thing I can give him, maybe he was young because he looked like a young officer, but no excuse. You know?
Yeah.
Now,
yeah.
Could he have gone back and they could have said, well, we're going to provide him with some remedial training? I think his action was way over the top, way over the top. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you look at, have you seen the video from his body cam?
I've just seen the one. It wasn't from his body cam. It was from the family member that was filming it.
The one from his body cam, when he walked onto their property to do the investigation, he walked up on 10 because he was going up to talk to the quote unquote suspect. So a part of me felt like you said, he might have been a new officer, rookie officer, whatever, because he walked up like, I'm the police. Police here now, and we're gonna deal with this situation. So you know from your rookie days, I know from my rookie days, you go through that phase, and when you show up, I'm the police, everybody listen to what I got to say. Now, Old girl was like, you on private property, so you don't come up here telling us who to shut up, who need to talk, that whole thing. And it went from there. And I don't know. I don't even know if the girl that he actually ended up arresting was the person that he was there to deal with to begin with. But on the police, I guess the department's issued statement was he was lawful in making. I mean, he was legit in making the arrest. He was unprofessional, and that's why they fired him. So I was like, that don't sound right. And maybe they fired him because he was, still on probation or something. I don't know. But if you firing people because they cussing out people they put in jail, boy, y'all gonna have to fire a whole lot of people. Because that happens a lot.
Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah. I mean, the video, the surveillance in these cameras is capturing everything. So I'm not sitting here like I never looked like Laurel and Hardy on an arrest, chasing somebody, talking about you under arrest, and I'm chasing them. I'm not gonna sit here and make like that was never me. I just never was caught on video, But had I been caught on video and the powers that be saw it, I don't know what I would have been facing. But I do understand that there is a policy that says actions unbecoming, and that is the catch-all that they can get you on.
Yeah. That can encompass a whole lot of things, and I'm guessing that's, I guess, the neighborhood in which that particular officer got fired under, because they backed him on making the arrest, but they hung him out to dry on how he did it.
Mm-hmm. So does this go back to what we've been saying for the last couple of weeks, is that now we're looking at the leadership in this climate? Don't you think that a sergeant, before releasing his squad, should have that conversation with, the type of climate that we're under? We're up under a microscope. Everybody's watching. You have to be sure that you're acting within policy. You have to be sure that the optics of whatever you're doing is not taken out of context. Don't you think that a sergeant, as a leader, should have that conversation before dismissing his squad? A lieutenant should have it. The chief should have it. The sheriff should have it. Don't you think somebody should be having this conversation with their officers to say, be aware of the climate that we're living in?
I believe they are having these conversations. I can recall hearing things similar to that during election years. And that was, hey, y'all know, this is an election year, so anybody messing up now, getting fired. So yeah, I'm going to go on a limb and go, okay, I'm sure that's being said. But the issue is people are who they are. So you can say that, you can have roll call training, you can all of that. But if I walk up to a residence and I feel like the people there are beneath me, then I'm not going to allow you to talk to me any kind of way when I feel like you already beneath me and I'm in a position of authority. If that's my thought process, then I'm gonna deal with you accordingly to you. A, you beneath me, and B, I'm in authority. So, not saying that that's how that man was thinking, but he walked up to that address on 10 when he walked up. So, I mean, there was really nowhere to go but where he went, because you can't, after she responded the way she responded, you know he not gonna back down as police. He ain't backing down. He not saying, okay, ma'am, you right. No. He didn't leave himself no room to the bill. He walked up on 10. And because he walked up on 10, she was on 10.
Yeah.
And then it went the way it went. I do believe that's in some capacities that's being talked about. Roll call, and in private circles, I'm sure, particularly when you're wearing a body cam, I'm sure somebody somewhere saying, hey, you got to watch how you do this, watch how you say that, et cetera, et cetera. But when that stress hit, and if you already have some implicit biases built in, all that stuff don't matter. You think about that when you calm down after the fight over, then you're like, oh man, I said that on camera.
Are you able to view any of the comments? Want to get to some of these comments?
Let me see. I can only see 4.
Okay. All right. Let me go through some of them.
I see Bobby Drummond and Vito Terry. Those are the only comments I see.
All right.
I think you might be able to get to all of them. I can't see all of them.
Robert Nelson says, as a young officer, I relied more on the seat of my pants and brute force. But once I gained the knowledge of preparation, training, de-escalation tactics, as well as defense tactics, then I was better able to handle the situation. As a result, not everyone I encountered went to jail. And I agree, because that's how my career went as I became a more veteran officer. That venom, I'm the police mentality. It started to subside, and I became more of a diplomat. So I believe there's a growth, a learning curve, and all that. So if the officer can survive the complaints, the scrutiny, or the discipline, if he can survive and just get counseled, reprimanded, suspended, whatever, before getting terminated, then it probably was a good career, because again, I'm no better than half the officers we're speaking about, other than the fact that I've never had to shoot nor kill anyone, but I know I was probably a little bit heavy-handed in my career. I know I probably said some things that I should not have said, but I was able to make it to the end. But make no mistake, in a lot of other areas, I got dealt with severely. So it all balanced out.
I think the number one thing that helped me the most in that area when I hit the street, because I hit the street as a very young man, was the time I spent working in the jail and the control that you had to have over inmates when you really didn't have control. As an example, you're in a dorm with 48 dudes, and the way you're supposed to feed them was close the door and feed them through the food flap, but you can't control how they line up. You can't control how many times people come up to the window. So I would go in the dorm and make them line up. And to do that was dangerous, but you had to talk to people. You had to convey what it was you needed them to do and you had to, treat them like the human beings that they are in a position of authority. So, my rule is simple. Hey, y'all want to eat? We gonna all eat, but this is what I need y'all to do. And whenever I had an issue, every dorm had one. I grabbed the dorm regulator. Hey man, I need everybody to line up. Come holler at me when they all lined up, and I walk out the door. So, and 9 times out of 10, when the dorm regulator spoke, things happen, and I come back. Hey, y'all ready now? Okay, we good. Everybody good. And so, translating that to the street, I never really had an issue with talking and dealing with people, because that experience taught me, yeah, I got the power, but if at any moment 12 or 13 or 14 of them 48 dudes decide, hey man, we gonna eat regardless of what you say, all I call for help and wait for the help to get there. But and I guarantee you, if you put some of these dudes that's on the street now in that situation, they wouldn't survive it, because they don't know how to talk to people. And the majority of success in law enforcement is how you talk to people. I think what RV said is on point 100%. I totally understand what you're saying, because as time went on, certain things people said, to me as a law enforcement officer didn't matter. Where, sometimes that would be a trigger for some people, but that stuff didn't matter. You could say, ride by, they got the song NWA playing at the police. And I go, I understand why you feel that way. I do. But when you get robbed, you're gonna call us. Mm-hmm. When you get shot, you're gonna call us. So but I understand why you feel that way. I ain't mad at you for saying that. Now, out of that, bore a lot of conversation. You pull up on the corner, start talking to dudes, and they, they'll tell you their experiences. And I try to explain to them now, same thing we doing now. Hey man, when y'all in these kind of situations, you need to do X, Y, and Z. So you don't, get that karate kick to the lips. I ain't gonna put RV out there like that, but RV been knowing that stuff for a minute.
All right. Let's see what else.
What other comments we got?
We have Cato Luda said, I haven't seen all the details, but he was supposedly attempting to de-escalate a domestic violence issue. He was tased. Other people on the scene supposedly were telling the officer he wasn't involved. The kids are in the vehicle. With just those details, you think maybe the action of the officers were not correct. Yeah, well, people telling him he wasn't involved, I think they should have taken the time to listen. I mean, it's kind of hard for me to fathom, and I know officers do it all the time, that you rush up on the scene and just start grabbing asses, if they're not in a physical fight, I mean, if they're not physically tangled up in a fight that I just got to start separating people, I do want to walk up and say, okay, so what's going on? And I want to know who the players are and what their roles are. So if people are telling him he wasn't involved, I think the officer should have taken the time to listen, and if the guy said, hey, I'm just a good Samaritan, I'm just trying to help out. Now you accusing me and you talk about putting your hands on me and you tasing me, I could probably see him saying, man, I'm out of here, but I maintain at the point that they pulled their weapon out, physically pointed at me and started giving me commands and orders, I'm like, okay, you got me on this one. So yes, I think that they definitely should have listened to the people and identified who the players were and what their role were.
Yeah. If I guess I'm trying to picture, and I shouldn't do this, trying to picture myself in that scenario with that kind of chaos going on. I shouldn't do that. The thing is, and I'm gonna default back to this. If all of that is true, then he should have been more in peacemaker mode. And I'm certainly not opening up my car door and going in head first. Because and maybe he's not aware of what that looks like. I don't know. I'm gonna give him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe he's not aware of what that looks like. If I'm not the aggressor, if I'm not the issue that officers have, I'm not doing nothing for them to tase me. And I'm certainly not doing nothing for them to shoot me, because we've already established his children are in the car. So the officer's actions are being, that's going to always, the officers can be 100% right and they're going to still piss off 50% of the people. So my end on that is, if you are on the side that no matter what the officers do is going to be wrong, then don't provoke wrong actions. Particularly if you're not even the person that's the reason why they there. If your hands clean, man, let your hands be clean. Back off and let the police handle it. Yeah. But I'm not, if I'm there trying to break up a fight or domestic or whatever it is, and the police show up, then my role then is become informed. Hey man, let me tell y'all what's going on. I don't know, but I'm still default back to, man, you got your kids in the car? Don't get shot with your kids in the car. Like, yeah. Don't do that.
Yeah. Bottom line, at the end of the day, survive the encounter.
Survive the encounter. It's sad that that's the state that we're in, but that's the state that we're in. So do all you can to make sure you I posted this several months ago, and it was in response to Kobe Bryant being killed. But we leave home so much with the expectation that we coming back home without even realizing how much of a blessing that is. That it happens so much that, how much time do we give to go, I left home and I came back the same way I left? And how many people don't have that testimony? So if I'm encountering somebody and at least I can control 50% of whether or not I get shot, my 50% gonna be I ain't do nothing to get shot. Now, if you shoot me, you commit a crime. Period. What else they saying?
Lawrence Johnson says, come on, man. They leave home with killing blacks on their mind. Any thoughts?
I don't believe that. I guess if you doing the law averages, I guess there may be some, but I don't believe that. I don't believe police officers leave home with the mindset to kill somebody black. No, I don't.
Vito says, how about making it mandatory for inmates as well? I don't see training, only law enforcement will solve these issues. Could you clarify what what you're referencing on that one, Vito? All right.
Training? What kind of training, or does it say?
Apparently, he didn't say, but apparently it was something that you alluded to as to how you dealt with the inmates when you worked in the jail. I'm assuming, but I'm not sure. Okay. All right. Early on in the conversation, Vito did say that the video don't show enough for anyone to draw any conclusions. That's true.
Agree.
In a court of
I
law,
agree.
it's not enough, but you know, in the court of public opinion, you know, we drawing some opinions. That don't mean nothing. All right.
Yeah, I agree with that. And we said that early on. It's not enough to completely, like, it's not enough, in my opinion, for people to be rioting in the street and having to call the National Guard in and stuff, because they weren't there, and you certainly don't know enough from the video. And I hope they're not getting their facts from how the streets be talking. Because, you know, the streets going to add in some hot sauce with it.
Oh, yeah. They got to spice it. Got to spice it up. I didn't think that we were being just us two were going to take one issue and take it the full length of our normal time, but we did. So with that being said, we're coming to the conclusion, and so we just want to put out some positive vibes or speak on anything positive. What you got?
Positive vibes. Boy, that's difficult during this time. I'll say this. People are suffering all over, and no matter how, you know, much a person is suffering or what a person's going through, there's always something or someone going on that's worse than what you got going on. So you always have something to be thankful for, even in the midst of what seems like you might be going through hell. So as opposed to griping about what's going on or the situation you're in, find something to be grateful for. Because no matter how bad you got it, somebody got it worse.
And I'm going to piggyback off that. I mean, that right there, in this moment in time, what you said, it touched my heart. And just the other day, this is Monday, so it had to be Saturday. I'm not one for just giving people, you know, transient people money, especially when they're actually holding out signs. I'm not one for that, because I feel that they put themselves in a situation, and now they're just out there begging, whatever. But I'm leaving one of the local convenience stores, and I'm in my car, and prior to riding up to the convenience store, I saw a guy on actually he was walking, and he was pulling one of those little luggage bags behind him. So he was walking. By the time I came out the convenience store, he had made it across the street to the convenience store, didn't come into the store. He went straight to the dumpster. And I'm pulling out. So I saw him park his little cart in front of the dumpster, and he goes and starts to dumpster dive. And just seeing that, like you said, made me realize how blessed I am. He didn't ask me for anything. You know, I'm just like, if this man is in broad daylight dumpster diving, it got to be bad. And he wasn't out there begging. So I put it in reverse, got out my car, pulled out a $10 bill, and I went up to him without starting and said, hey, excuse me. He turned around, what you want? And I just reached out to give him this dollar bill. He said, what's that? And so he saw it was money. He took it and he said, all right, appreciate it. I said, okay. I said, you all right? And he said, yeah, I'm good. And I just walked off. So I say that to say, you know, sometimes we got to be thankful and grateful for what we have, the small things, because a lot of people out there don't have half of what we have. And, you know, sometimes just show a little bit of love and compassion and, you know, sympathy, empathy, you know, just, you know, so I appreciate you making that point, something that I could piggyback off of, because we got to get back to showing that love for mankind.
Very true. Very true. And I got to apologize to you. I just recognized I had this thing on speaker view the whole time. So,
Wow.
my bad.
Okay.
So,
all right.
That being said, the tech guy is fired.
Mm-hmm. So if anybody have any issue in the way that it's been displayed without the Hollywood Square format, LJ is responsible.
Fire the tech guy.
Okay. All right. Well, again, I appreciate everybody tuning in and hanging out with us for this hour and a half. You know, we get a little bit long-winded, but we want to make sure that we clear in our thoughts and our feelings, so you know it won't be taken out of context. So appreciate you.
And everything we saying is, you know, how we see it. Like you Sam say always, we call balls and strikes. We don't pick sides. Call balls and strikes.
Okay, so until next week, we'll holler.
Peace.